What's going on, good people? Mr. Meyer with the fire, here to take the collective vibe higher. And I want to share with you a powerful tool today. This is the tree of life, the Kabbalistic tree of life. And what this symbol really is a reality map, which can be really helpful in a reality to gain clarity and understanding. Where am I? Where am I going? Where have I been? So this is a very old symbol that originates from Judaism. This is Jewish mysticism. And this symbol incorporates numerology, astrology, gematria, among other things, the tarot cards. So this can be really useful as far as a language and help you see how things connect. Essentially, what this symbol does is it gives you a filing cabinet for your life and your experiences to be able to compartmentalize certain things and see again where you are. So I think it's really beautiful. This can be somewhat overwhelming with all the symbols and shapes and colors. So the primary things that I want to touch on today is, number one, this is a reality map. Number two, there's many ways to look at the map. And number three, the universe is fractal. So what that means is everything is connected to everything. You are the tree of life. And the longer you watch this symbol, the more you watch your life, the more you're going to see that. So my intention with this video is to help you connect with this symbol and understand that you are living this already, and then use this to benefit your life. So essentially, there are 10 different spheres on the tree of life, or Sephiroth is what they're called, which means emanation. This essentially reflects a different world or a different reality or a different state of being. And there's 22 different paths between the Sephiroth. And these paths will really tie together the two Sephiroth that are connected. There are 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet, which is really interesting. They'll all correspond to one of these paths on the tree. And also, the tarot cards are wrapped up into this. Every path is reflected by one of the tarot cards. So what's really beautiful is if you do read the tarot cards, understanding the tree of life is going to add a depth of meaning to them. Even if you don't read the tarot cards, understanding the tree of life is going to help you understand the cards, and you may be drawn to the cards by virtue of Kabbalah. So very powerful stuff. And when you understand the spheres, the planets, the energies that connect the paths, you really get to see how the symbolism of the cards really wraps up into the knowledge. It's really cool. So there are 10 spheres, and there's 7 ancient planets, if you include the sun and the moon. So on the very top of the diagram, there's various levels of nothingness. The intention of this map is to show creation. How did we get to this world? So we start from the top sphere. Number 1, the crown, Kether. This is about divine inspiration, becoming consciousness. This is the innermost temple. And then life would descend down the tree of life from 1 to 2 to 3, somewhat in a zigzag lightning bolt pattern, and end at the very bottom, number 10, Malkuth. This is the kingdom. This is the physical world. This is the earth that we live in. So as I mentioned before, astrology is wrapped up in this. So you'll see each sphere correlates to a planet. The very bottom one is earth, where we live, the garden, the kingdom, the world of shape and form. And there's also different ways to group the Sephiroth. Frankly, friends, this can be overstimulating and overwhelming, so you will want to take your time to study this and maybe get a copy of the Tree of Life and put it on your phone, or get a printout or a poster and start to let the knowledge come into your mind. Some say Kabbalah means receive. So for the most part, this is an oral tradition. Like I said, there's a million ways to look at it. So study it, think about it, project into it, have conversations about it. Above Malkuth, Earth, is Yesod, which is the moon. And we already know the earth deals with the physical world, shape and form, cause and effect. Yesod, the moon, deals with the astral plane. This deals with our feelings, our emotions, our memories. One really cool thing to note in this symbol is there's 3 different pillars: the left, the right, and the middle. The left-hand path, and you have 2 hands, hopefully, most of us do. The left-hand path is the path of severity, power. And the right-hand path is the path of mercy and love. The middle path blends the 2 of those energies together. So you've also got Mercury on the tree of life, that's number 8. You've got Venus, number 7. The sun is 6. Mars is number 5. Jupiter is 4. You've got Saturn as 3. And this is where it's debatable what planets correspond to the remaining spheres, because the ancient Kabbalists did not have telescopes to know about Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, but we fit them into the tree in the modern day. A lot of people will say that Neptune corresponds to the 2nd sphere and Pluto corresponds to the 1st. And like I mentioned earlier, you can group these spheres up in a multitude of different ways. There's also a secret 11th sphere. Some say this is the sphere that's not a sphere, that runs through the path between Kether and Tiphereth, the sphere of Da'ath, the sphere of knowledge. So I got this printout on Amazon for maybe about $10. It was worth every penny. So you got the kingdom, the foundation, the splendor, victory, beauty, severity, mercy, understanding, wisdom, and the crown. And the knowledge sits in that Da'ath sphere of the abyss. So it's really interesting how you can connect this to your person, where from the very bottom of the physical world, you can connect up to the emotional plane, where you have your feelings and how you connect to the world. On the left of the path, where we go to Mercury, this becomes your thoughts, how you calculate and analyze, how your intellect works. On the right, Venus, this has more to do with your wants and your needs and your feelings, your thoughts, your feelings, your memories. Then you've got Tiphereth right up here, and this is where we see the vision of harmony. Some would say this is the solar plexus, this is the sun, this is the ego, this is the identity that we choose for ourselves. This is where we ascend the tree of life. The tarot cards that correspond with these paths are Judgment, the World, and the Moon. So basically, you can either have the intellectual awakening to continue your spiritual journey, or the emotional awakening through the moon, Judgment or the Moon. The center path is the World once again. That's the path of Saturn, which is also shown on this map, which is really cool. So then you've got Temperance leading up the tree of life. You've got the High Priestess card going up right to the top. So every sphere basically has its own vision, its own reason for being. And I'll paint the picture to the best of my ability. I'm still working on receiving this, but the vision of the earth is attaining the conversation with your higher self, which therefore would have a person understand, why are they existing? I'm going to jump the gun and tell you that the vision of Kether, number 1, is completing the great work of transformation, which is really what all magic or mysticism is really aiming to do, to transform and transfigure the self and turn our lead into gold and things of that nature. So this is about gaining the knowledge, the conversation of your holy guardian angel. Number 2, or you could say number 9, going to the 2nd sphere from the bottom, Yesod is about the machinery of the universe. That's the vision of the moon, which is about recognizing that everything in the universe is serving its place. There's no spare parts, there's no missing parts. The vision of Hod, Mercury, is the splendor of the mind, which is really the vastness and the amazing quality of this universe. The vision of Netzach, Venus, is victory, beauty triumphant. This is Venus Aphrodite. This is what we like. This is what we want. Tippereth. And keep in mind, this is in the middle pillar. This is the vision of harmony. And harmony is where everything gets along. Everything's balanced. This is beauty. You got Mars, Gabora, the 5th sphere, the vision of power, the vision of strength. And you have the vision of mercy on the right with Jupiter, Hesed. The top spheres, you'll notice at the very bottom, it's very personal. And the higher up you go on the tree, the more transpersonal, the farther out there it's really going to be. So you've also got that abyss, that invisible sphere sitting between the top 3 spheres, which are called the supernals, and then the next 3, this is the ethical triangle. And number 3, Binah, is about understanding. It's the vision of sorrow. Saturn, and it's really interesting how Saturn really breaks us through the fold, the veil of Paroketh, where we break out of, objective awareness and learn about our subjective awareness. Saturn also has its own governance over the 3rd sphere, which is a very primordial force because it's transpersonal. And this sphere is all about understanding. Saturn in your actual life has a lot to do with society and where you choose to be born and the conditions and the programs and the structure of your consciousness that you inherit in this world. It's very powerful. So this is about understanding the vision of sorrow, the pain that comes with the world, and having the ability to hold the compassion. Some would say this is also the vision of love, vision of compassion. And you can also notice that if you climb lateral on the tree of life, the spheres that come above a certain sphere may be higher octaves or versions of this. So some say Chokmah, number 2, is also a vision of love. It's the vision of the creator, the creation. And then again, the vision of the first one is completing the great work. But it's worth noting there's illusions that exist on every sphere. There's obligations that need to be paid. There's virtues. There's vices. And by understanding the paths, yet again, you can understand better how to integrate these energies within your life. It's worth saying that what is a blessing in one sphere could be a vice in another sphere. So I think it's beautiful to see Tippereth in the very center, and remember to strive for harmony, strive for balance. I'll tell you about some of the illusions. My astrologers probably are connecting with this pretty well. I hope you guys are enjoying this video. Leave a like if you do. The illusion of Malkuth is materialism, where we are in this physical world, but if we get too wrapped up in it and start to identify with it, we can start to do ourselves a disservice. So speaking of the moon, the vision of the machine of the universe, this one, the illusion is security. Obligations are worth getting into right now. I could talk about this all day, guys. So I'm going to paint a picture of the illusions, the obligations, the virtues and the vices, and then I'll leave you guys to study it. And let me know in the comments below what experiences you've had. What do you think about this content? And what do you think? I'll leave you a book recommendation too. The Inner Temple of Witchcraft series. This one is actually the Temple of High Witchcraft. It's the 4th book in the series of the Temple of Witchcraft. And this book is heavily about ceremonial magic and the Kabbalah. And it has respective chapters for each sphere and workings that you can do to really travel. You can journey through these spheres in your meditations, which is really cool. Anyway, Malkuth, the bottom of the tree, where we all start, requires discipline. The obligation is discipline. Discipline and discernment, which means you have to show up, you have to do the work on yourself, you have to be willing to do it. The obligations and the virtues are often very antithetical to the illusions and the vices. So the illusion is materialism. The vices deal with inertia and laziness, which is kind of brutal. If you really think about how you want to improve your life, how could you improve your life? You don't really have to go up to the top 9 spheres. If you really just focus on Malkuth and master discipline and discernment and avoid laziness and inertia, you're almost guaranteed to secure advancement on your path. The moon. So after we do that, then we lean into the emotional plane of existence once the physical plane is kind of locked down. And these correspond with elements as well. Earth obviously corresponds to the earth element. Yesod corresponds with water. It's the moon. Mercury is air. Netzach is fire. And then Tiphereth is spirit. So you've got the first 5 elements, or some would say spirit's really not an element, or it is all 5. But regardless, the obligation of Yesod is trust. And it goes hand in hand with the vision. Understanding the machine of the universe means you can trust that everything is exactly where it's supposed to be, even if it doesn't make the most sense to you. Okay? The virtue of Yesod is independence, which therefore makes the vice dependence. I mentioned earlier that what is a virtue in one sphere could be a vice in another, and the obligations have to be paid. So I can illustrate with just the first 2 spheres. If one person lacks discipline or discernment, they could lean heavy into trust, and that might not necessarily be a good thing, because that would lead to doing less for ourselves, aka lacking discipline, but then being over-reliant in others or the universe or putting our trust outward, which therefore becomes the vice of dependence. I hope this is making sense, and leave a like or leave me a comment if you guys are getting this, because this changed my life and I've been hyper-fixated, somewhat obsessed with this symbol. Hod, the obligation is learning. That's Mercury, the power of the mind. The virtue is truthfulness. The vice is dishonesty. The illusion is order. While we learn things, while we make sense of life, patterns will be interrupted, and that will break your brain. And it's worth mentioning that connecting your feelings to your thoughts, taking the path from Hod to Netzach is the tower path. It's a very stabilizing force, but it's a crunchy energy, so to speak. The tower tarot card goes right between those 2. So Netzach, the vision of beauty triumphant. The obligation is responsibility. The virtue is selflessness. The vice becomes selfishness. Responsible behavior, chastity. That's what this is about. Tiphereth. This is where things get really good, because Tiphereth is the vision of beauty and its harmony. So Tiphereth really is about dedication to the great work. That is the obligation, being truly devoted. And you will see this devotion characterized by the lower spheres, like your trust in yourself, your trust in the universe, and your discipline and dedication and consistency on Malkuth. You showing up and doing the work every day. So I will say, the illusion of Tiphereth is identification. I is an illusion, if you really think about it. Choose your identity wisely and recognize it's still an illusion. Integrity is the virtue of Tiphereth. And the vice is false pride. Pride is not a sin. False pride is really what you want to look out for. It's okay to love yourself, but just recognize that you are an illusion at the end of the day. And this goes even further up into Kether, where we start to embrace non-dual consciousness and recognize all is one and one is all. And this will be reflected in the higher spheres, but at the same time, you don't want to be too sucked up into the supernals before you really understand how things work in the physical, because then you can get into what we often call spiritual bypassing and using your esoteric knowledge to deflect your experience away from the physical world or full presence and embodiment, and that's not what we want. So moving up a little bit further, Gabura, this is the vision of power, and the obligation is courage, right? Courageous behavior. And the vice would be either fear or wanton destruction. Cruelty is a good word for that. The illusion is invincibility. Nobody's invincible. But when you find that vision of power, you can feel unstoppable, right? So then we've got Hesed. And Hesed is the vision of love. And the obligation is obedience. And the virtues deal with humility. And then the vices deal with hypocrisy, gluttony, tyranny, bigotry. Keep in mind this is Jupiter's sphere, and Jupiter has a lot to do with our meanings and our reasonings behind things. And Mars and Jupiter are really balancing forces. You've got the severity and the mercy. And severity without mercy is cruelty, but mercy without severity is weakness, okay? So I'm jumping back a little bit, but I want to say the illusions of Netzach are projection. Think about this. If we lack the responsibility to take care of ourselves, the discipline, it can conveniently see like everybody else has a problem when we're too selfish and unselfish. Hope I'm making sense. Anyway, there aren't really as many rigid rules with the supernals, but just understand that we are always fluctuating in and out of non-dual consciousness. Kether, I think, is a good jumping off point for this video. The vision is completing the great work, but the illusion is attainment. So I think that mirrors the point that everything in this world is vibrating and nothing is resting. So we're always in a state of change and flux, all right? So at the end of the day, you just have to bring as much consciousness into your life as possible and truly stay devoted, pay those dues, and be consistent. And this is difficult for people when we get to the obligations of Tippereth, because one can start to feel like their life really isn't even their own. But when you really do attain that conversation and that knowledge of your higher self, your steps will be guided and you'll see the vision of harmony, how being the person of integrity that you need to be actually does influence the rest of the world positively. And the merit is in the effort, even if we never really arrive. So hope you guys enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it. Leave a like if you did. Fire family, stay lit. It's Mr. Meyer with the Fire, here to take the collective vibe higher. And our sole intention, Fire family, is to reconcile all paradox with love and truth. And I love you. Take care of yourself.